So, welcome to Charter Authorizer Support Initiative. This is our charter chat for February 25th, 2026. Go ahead and go to the next slide here. And of course, we have our caveat. The information contained in this presentation is provided as a reference only. Charter schools and chartering authorities are encouraged to review the laws and regulations and consult with their own legal counsel regarding the application to their specific situations. The next slide will have our agenda on it. Just as a reminder, I do have to read all the information on all of the slides. Today we have a pretty short charter chat. We'll spend a lot of time in our breakout groups, but we'll do a little bit of introductions. We have current updates, hot topics, and then we do have some specific topics for our breakout rooms. So, welcome. Charter Chat, of course, is part of the CASI grant with Santa Clara County Office of Education, Los Angeles County Office of Education, and San Diego Unified School District. I'm Tiffany DeGraffenreid from San Diego Unified, and we have representatives also from LACO and Santa Clara as well. I don't know if you guys want to wave or come off of mute and say hello. Our next slide is how to introduce yourself. It helps us a lot if you would rename yourself with the name and your organization. For example, Michelle Johnson, Santa Clara County Office of Ed. And then the breakout rooms today will be authorizer rooms 1, 2, 3, 4, and then there will be a non-authorizer partner room. Okay, so just recently we had a bonus February quarterly training. So, quarterly part two, we had CASI February 2026 bonus quarterly training. The topic was Beyond the Moratorium, Essential Non-Classroom Based Charter School Oversight. It was packed with information, and I know that resource page will go up on the CDE website soon. If you need any additional information or would like us to come out and give an on-site training about any of the information that you learned at the non-classroom based training, just contact us and we can follow up with more information. That was February 6th, 2026 at 9:30 to 11, and that was via Zoom. Thank you so much for joining us, all of you that were online with us. I think we had over 80 participants at that training. And next, we have legislative updates with Tom.
Okie doke. Well, folks, the legislature's back in session. The deadline to introduce new legislation has passed, although it's possible that other ideas that aren't currently in legislation can get glommed onto an existing vehicle. But the big one everybody's watching is the budget trailer bill, and that has a bunch of things that had been agreed to in the Senate Bill 141 negotiations last year where the bill got vetoed, and it will make sense at a future charter chat to go through them in detail. But this is very much a moving target, and I'll explain a little bit some of the things in motion. But just to flag a few highlights that are in that, and there's a lot of summaries out there you can find, including ours. But CSDC has, everybody has. There is, for our purposes, they are requiring more interactions and interface between authorizers and audits and auditors. There is some monitoring of enrollment and attendance requirements, including a flag that if a school that has independent study has rapid growth, that's something the authorizer needs to look into. There's some requirements about visiting all the school's meeting spaces. If they have multi-sites or resource centers, you got to visit all of them for your annual visits. They want more attention paid to governing boards, so they want you to attend at least one governing board meeting and then monitor, minutes and agendas and such. There is a requirement about documenting your oversight tasks, your fulfillment of them, and unrelated to authorizing in particular, but it relates to renewals is well, I guess it is authorizing, and that is that verified data has made its way back in. They've used this vehicle to get that going again, recreating the provision that lapsed with the veto of the bill. The reason why this is still in motion is, and this is like the newest stuff, just the things I've heard in the last 24 hours here at CCSA. But there is uh, when they say that some of the consensus quote unquote provisions are what's in the budget trailer bill, there is a sense among some of the charter school advocates anyway that, well, we agreed to that because there were other things that also were agreed to that are not in the budget trailer bill. So whether can be construed as like everybody agrees to this when that was sort of conditional on some of the other things is an open question. So we'll have to see. And we have heard some concerns from charter school folks here in Long Beach about there being additional costs associated with these things for charters where they didn't get some of the other things they wanted, and then a narrower from the non-classroom based schools, a concern that these additional costs get factored into their 20%, and that could toward their funding determination, and that could throw them awry there. So they're a little bit concerned there. So all that means is that there's a lot of politics still at play here. It's not like, okay, this is just the boring stuff. This is all we're getting, and it's going to go through, start preparing for everything. There will be ongoing discussions, and some of this will probably make it through, and some might not, or there might be additional things. So stay tuned for future chats.
Thank you, Tom. So, next is the California Department of Education and State Board of Education updates. The Advisory Commission on Charter Schools meeting was held on February 3rd, and the agenda included two State Board approved charter renewals, Bay Point Prep Academy and Olive Grove Charter. The next meeting is scheduled for April 7th, 2026. And the next SBE meeting will be held on March 11th and 12th, 2026. Likely state board agenda items will be the personal finance curriculum and adoption of performance standards for student growth, and some more information on differentiated assistance. So moving to the next slide, we have our hot topics, information on topics that are relevant to oversight of charter schools, programmatic, and also fiscal. The next slide is program oversights, mid-year local control and accountability plan. The LCAP mid-year reports due February 28th. Look for these on board agendas this month. We're quickly coming to the end of the month, so most of those should have already been reviewed. Safety plans also need to be updated annually by March 1st. The CDE has great templates. You can direct charter schools to the CDE website for those templates. And there's been several new additions in the last couple of years, so that comprehensive school safety plan needs to include all those updates. Form 700s need to be completed by April 1st. As a reminder, charter renewal process notification to the CDE also. We have lots of information on our resource page, the CASI resource page for details, but that notification should occur within 10 days after approving the charter. The notification should include a copy of the official action, so that's the minutes, the board resolution, or a signed letter from the superintendent. So this could be basically a verification of the minutes if those have not yet been approved by the board, and likely they won't have been within the 10 days. You also need to send a copy of the updated petition, and if the school is low performing, that should include the improvement plan as well. And we can go to the next slide. And Shalou, I think you're taking that one.
Sure. Thank you, Tiffany. Starting with the second interim report, which is due March 15th, Education Code 47604.33A4. The second interim financial report reflecting the data from July 1st through January 31st is due to the Chartering Authority and COE, or just COE if COE is the authorizer, uh, on or before March 15th. Second, we have fiscal year 24-25 annual audit. The 45-day extension, I know some of you may have granted the 45-day extension, especially for the federal supplemental that caused a delay. The 45-day extension for 24-25 annual audit submission expired on January 29th. That was extension from the December 15th statutory deadline. So all the 24-25 audit reports should have been received by now. Continue to follow up with any schools that have not submitted their 24-25 audit. Once received, review all submitted reports and conduct follow-up with schools regarding their any audit findings, deficiencies, or any material weaknesses or area that require clarification. So that's what we are doing right now, even when we are conducting our annual site visits. So we are following up as well as on the audit report findings as well. Next slide, please. I think I'm turning back to Tiffany.
So next we'll move into our breakout rooms. You'll be moved to an assigned breakout room and then back to this session. We'll open the slideshow. The link is in the chat and take notes. Each room has a new slide depending on what room you're in. Keep introductions short in the interest of time, but make sure that you introduce yourself if there's any first-time people to the charter chats. Report discussion highlights back to the full group. And the breakout rooms and facilitators are listed there. Authorizer room 1, authorizer room 2, authorizer room 3, authorizer room 4, and then a non-authorizer partner room in room 5. This time, we do have a few suggested topics for today. The trailer bill, I know, has brought up a lot of questions and comments and concerns, so we're offering that up as a suggested topic for discussion. Also, renewal issues. There are several renewals going on right now, and non-classroom based petitions. The moratorium just lifted in January, and some of you may have received new petitions and have questions about those. So we will jump into our breakouts. Who is my note taker for room 1? We'll go ahead and do the debrief now for the breakout rooms.
Sure, I can start, and if there's anything else that I missed that Joanna can fill in on that. So we did not actually discuss on the trailer bill. We discussed on the annual site visit report or annual site visit. How does annual site visit look like, and who do we interview, and what does the report look like? Just the compliance or progress or both, and how does it fit into for the renewal? We talked about the facility issue. If the authorizer see a facility issue, that's for the school, who is responsible for that? Is that school, district, or is the authorizer? And how do we go into, if there is severity of that issue, going to more into a letter of concern, and what ed codes and all, everything needs to be coded into that letter, and how to go about with that. We did not, the group that we had, none of them received any non-classroom based petition, but we did share about the CASI February 6th webinar and other different CASI resources that would helpful in case they do get a petition and if they're looking for some resources for that. So yeah, Joanna, in case I missed on anything else.
No, I think that was all of it. Thank you, Shalu.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. And the note taker for room 2?
I'll give credit where it was due. Shelley was the note taker, but she preferred that she not be the person reporting back, so I'll take that one. We had some discussion of renewals, especially for the renewal of a school in the low tier and what your school improvement sort of expectations might be and how much you want to use a template versus, not telegraphing everything in advance because it's so school specific. We had some discussion of the trailer bill, but it was more prompted by concerns about the quality of the audits that some folks are seeing coming from the school audits, and just the observation that some of these audits don't even meet the current standards. So raising the standards for audits won't get the job done if already they're not meeting the current standards. And the whole question of supply and demand of qualified auditors and that sort of thing, some concern there. And then a difficult conversation about not the things that are illegal, but the things that may be legal, but just don't smell right. And this is that whole sort of issues around sole statutory members and very generous contracts with related parties. I see Everardo nodding his head. He's had some experience with this recently. Contract terms and leases and just, very tough questions about what authorizers can and can't do and what the state might need to do for things that may be quote unquote legal but just don't seem right. And then to end on a good note, though, we heard from Danielle at Inglewood that she has reached the point in her district, Inglewood, where it now is not, she's the sole person responsible for all authorizing, and everybody else does her a favor if they help out, but everybody has sort of internalized that, yeah, the authorizing that's part of what I do in my job too. And that's a wonderful thing for smaller shops that don't have dedicated staff to reach to the point where everybody says, hey, we're all in the authorizing part together. So end on a high note.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Tom. And the note taker for room 3, please.
We focused kind of on the renewal part, but one, working with capital advisors as a support, we got a thumbs up from people as something that would be good for small shops. Return of verified data. We kind of talked about how important it is for high schools since the growth metric on the dashboard is just grades 4 through 8. Talked briefly about revocation appeals at the county level, dependent charter that's in the low group, and what is needed for that. There was a question about tax in lieu for a brand new first year school and how that happens. And the thought was that they get a true up later in the year, but they did need to look further into that. And then lastly, just to talk about the relationship between authorizers and charter schools and whether or not they should meet frequently or not meet frequently. I think we kind of landed on that it should be fine to meet with your charter schools frequently and talk about things and share ideas. So that was it from our group.
Wow, Jeff, you guys covered a lot of topics, very different topics. Nice job. Okay, I was with room 4, and we also covered a few different things. We started with the safety plan and just asking questions about how much to assist charter schools with deficient safety plans. And many of us made suggestions to direct them to the CDE or to their council to review the safety plan. Some counties have made checklists for the charter schools to go through to make sure that they have all of the components needed. We also talked a little bit about the denial of a low tier school at the district level and then an approval at the county level, and that it was interesting that they had some of the similar concerns in the report. But by the time the school got from the district denial to the county, they were able to answer a lot of the questions and figure some things out that they hadn't been able to answer at the district board meeting. So we spent a little bit of time talking about that. We also talked about non-classroom based petitions, and no one in our group had received any yet either. We just thought it was interesting. We thought we would get this windfall of new non-classroom based petitions, and we haven't gotten those yet. But we did have someone in our group that said that they had some classroom-based schools that were converting to non-classroom based because of some facility issues, and they were going to practice being a flex-based school. So that was the first that I had heard of that, and that might be something that you are dealing with your area as well. So, and then we spent a little bit of time talking about concerns about rural schools being able to contract with auditors. They already have a difficult time hiring auditors now. And if there are more requirements placed on auditors, as it's outlined in the trailer bill, will they even be able to find them? So we talked about that a little bit too. Okay, and our last room, room 5.
Great. I know Zach took notes similar to room 2, and Tom did the discussion. I did the discussion, so I'll go ahead and share out. Thank you, Zach, for taking the notes. We started off not with the trailer bill, but with a discussion about, in the light of where we are now with post AB 1505 and all the ed code resulting from that and the performance categories, should a petitioner gear their presentation more in a focused manner based on that, or should they still include all of the typical 15 elements and all of the presentations and all that? And it's sort of a question of where they land. CDE doesn't really give advice on this, but it was sort of obvious in terms of, yes, I think there's a very much an awareness out there increasingly that the authorizers are going to be taking very seriously the criteria of the law and the performance categories, and particularly if somebody landed, for example, in the low performance category and the requirements that are there, then you have a real pressure to make the case. So it was a healthy discussion about that. We also had a bit on the trailer bill itself and where it is right now. There was a question about where people can go to find updates on that. Besides the charter organizations doing their own analyses, I mentioned that for CDE, the best place to keep checking is our CASI page and our resource pages as we go forward, and to look for ongoing information there. And then we had some discussion on how it might be impacting even more egregiously, and from the standpoint of the charter school, some of the auditing requirements catching what one person described as fairly inconsequential mistakes, but adding on pretty hefty financial penalties. This person had actually seen some of that already in the last year of audits and was thinking that this might increase. I thought that was pretty reasonable to assume and to prepare for, and to actually try to make sure that all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed so that doesn't happen. Then we had a little bit of discussion on just what was raised about how many non-classroom based charters are we seeing, and without landing on any particular number, the sense that came in the discussion was there's less than was expected, just as was said, but there are some. It depends on where you are, but there are some coming in. There was a question about the timeline. It's the same timeline. That hasn't really changed. So it depends on when a person is planning to be open, right? And when their board meetings are and all those questions, but the timeline's not different. So people are looking at still, I think, wondering when and how much of the non-classroom based anticipated flood that's not flooding as deeply will arrive. So that's what we had.
Great. Thank you so much. Sounds like everybody was very productive. So we can go on to the next slide here. We have a few announcements. But first, if you would provide us your feedback, it's very important to us. So this is our meeting feedback survey. Please complete our short after meeting survey to share your feedback and suggest breakout room topics for our upcoming charter chat. The survey link is also going to be available in the chat. Did we already drop that there? We did. Yay. And so on the next slide is our upcoming events, our upcoming CASI events. We have the next monthly CASI Charter Chat that will be upcoming March 25th. From 10 to 11, the regular time. We also have the CASI quarterly training. The topic will be the road to renewal. Talk a little bit about the 5, 6, 7 year renewals for high performing and more about low performing schools renewals as well. That'll be April 17th, 2026 from 9 to 11 via Zoom. And then the registration link is also on the resource page on the CDE website. And then the CASI pre-conference at CCAP conference is the topic will be Charter Authorizing and Oversight 101. That is a boot camp. Actually, Tom, did you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure, thanks. I mean, for those who aren't familiar, CASI does a full day charter oversight, authorizing and oversight, and it's great for people who are kind of new to the field or just need a refresher. It's interesting that we've had some veterans take it more than once because maybe they deal with one area and this gives them kind of a refresher in the other areas like fiscal, just a quick, and then it's sort of like it helps you if you're new to this topic of authorizing to avail yourself of the rest of the conference because you've gotten all the kind of the lingo and the terminology and all that stuff. So Cassie does a great job of it, and but we also just want to put out there, our call for proposals is out. So there's a lot of the presenters are on this call right now. So get your proposals in. They're due March 16th. But we're looking forward to a great conference and book your hotel early if you have an interest in staying in San Diego through the Juneteenth weekend because you can get the conference rate, but there's a limited availability of the room. So if that's something that's interesting you, jump in. And I'll put the link to the conference. All this stuff is on one page. I'll put it in the chat. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. And on the next slide, we have upcoming CASI events as well, Authorizing 101, Fiscal 101, or the topic of your choice. CASI can bring free training via Zoom or on-site locally to those who need additional support. Authorizing 101 can also be tailored to local topical priorities, pair it with a training for charter schools, or combine, and you can reach out to us at casi@cde.ca.gov. And Kathy Morrison, are you on the Zoom still?
I still am, yes.
All right, so I'm going to have Kathy talk a little bit about an event that's coming up at Sacramento County that involves Cassie.
Yes, thank you, Tiffany. So we have been trying to build relationships with our charter schools. So on one hand, we have been offering a quarterly charter community of practice for which we have a steering committee. It's not just the county telling them, no, this is what you want to know, but it's inclusive. But we have struggled to get authorizers in the room. And so we have, usually about 40 people attending in person this meeting quarterly. And really reliably, I'm going to say only one authorizer. And so having connected with Tiffany and Deidre on behalf of CASI, we are offering an authorizer mini training following our March Charter Community of Practice. And so we've extended the invite to the Sacramento County authorizing contacts. Tiffany and Deidre are going to come up and really highlight like what is right in front of you as an authorizer, thinking about things like LCAP review, trailer bill, examples of the new monitoring that may be applicable. And Tiffany, I'm unsure if you want me to invite everyone in the state, but
no, you don't have to do that. But I did drop the link in for the registration for anyone that is in Sacramento County. If you would like to attend in person, it will be a brief 101. We'll talk about some real life recent examples from across the state of some oversight shortfalls and how to avoid those pitfalls. And also, like Kathy mentioned, just how to review LCAPs with the authorizer eye lens. And then you'll have an opportunity to speak with us and schedule something with us for your district if you would like to as well.
And Tiffany, would you say driving distance welcome?
Sure.
So yeah, hope to see you there. Please register, and it will include lunch. And if you can come early, you can sit in on the Charter Community of Practice.
Thank you so much. I know I kind of put you on a spot there, but I appreciate it.
I'm
Okay,
looking forward to it.
great. Me too. So that was my one-on-one technical support plug. So you can reach out to the CASI contact lead, which is Michelle Johnson, but we do kind of pass around those responsibilities to either our office or Lego's office as well. Mentoring support that you can reach out to CASI lead contract Deidre Walsh. On-site trainings, you can reach out to CASI lead Indra Ciccarelli, and then please also see the resource page for more information. Then our next slide. That is our contact information. Contact us at CASI@cde.ca.gov. So I think that's all for today. Thank you very much. If any of you have additional questions, you can drop those in the chat or stay on a little bit after and we can answer those questions for you. Please enjoy the rest of your week and we will see you next month.